Okay, great. So yeah, I'll be talking today about deepfakes, asking this question if they're the next big disinformation threat or if they're just overhyped. And this is part of a project we're working on now, funded by the German Foreign Ministry. So we'll be putting out a series of 3 papers in the upcoming months. So um, let's see. So yeah, what are deepfakes? Now seeing is no longer believing because you can actually use artificial intelligence to manipulate video and other more low tech forms to actually manipulate video. So here are some examples. And why is this actually dangerous? So experts are calling this a game of cat and mouse, and they're saying that once the technology becomes so advanced, they will no longer be able to actually detect if a manipulated video has been manipulated. So this can have major implications for disinformation. And with that in mind, also, the technology to actually manipulate video is becoming cheaper and easier to use. And a study that came out recently by Deeptrace monitored deepfakes for about 7 months, and they found that during this period, the number of deepfakes on the internet actually doubled. So that's a really interesting finding and a little scary. And also, we have to consider that maybe even this like sort of cheap fake might be good enough to already manipulate citizens and trick them. And also it's important to consider maybe these 4 key accelerating factors. So first, that known state disinformation actors are already having advanced artificial intelligence technology. Video sharing platforms are more important than ever, especially TikTok is on the rise. Also, private messaging platforms could be the perfect place to spread deep fakes, as we're not really able to detect in there. And also, polarization is on the rise globally. So if we can barely agree on facts, how can we agree on the truth of a deep fake video? But yeah, I also want to mention that deepfakes are just kind of a form of technology, right? So this technology of manipulating videos can also have good uses. For example, political satire, citizens should have a right to speak freely. And also this technology is used in the film industry, so that's also fine. That's also where this technology is really being developed. But we have to consider 3 main areas of harm: democratic discourse, individuals, and security. So I'm going to talk about those now. And yeah, the Brookings Institute has a really great paper that came out where they talk about the main harms to democratic discourse. So first, of course, is disinformation, that people might see a false video and actually believe and remember the content in there. Second is the exhaustion of critical thinking. So if people just assume that everything is fake, how can they actually tell what the truth is? How can we have truth in our political discussions? And third is that politicians might actually have culpable deniability. So they might be able to say that a video is fake when actually it's true. Um, and yeah, this is a very famous example from the United States. So there was this video that was posted by a so-called far-right group on a Facebook account, and it's actually a cheap fake, not a deep fake, but it's just the audio was manipulated to make the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, sound kind of drunk or ill, and it spread online quite quickly before anyone recognized it or called it out. There's also this other famous example from Gabon. So people were unsure if President Ali Bongo was actually dead or had a stroke. And then this strange video came out where his face looked different than from a few months ago. And so people were actually saying that he had died and that this was just a deep fake being put out by the government because they didn't want the citizens to know that he had died. And 7 days later, there was actually a coup, a military coup, because people were assuming that the president had died. Turned out that he was actually very much alive and he came out into public view. But this just shows that now that video could potentially be fake, just can cause chaos and confusion amongst citizens. And the second area of harm I wanted to talk about is harm to individuals. So the same study by Deeptrace found that 96% of deepfakes online are actually not related to politics at all. They're pornographic in nature. And 100% of these pornographic deepfakes feature women. So right now, deepfakes really seem to be a human rights issue, especially targeting women. So this is using their faces, their bodies without their consent. And this is very violating and can have psychological, emotional effects on them. And then the third situation is like potential harm to private sector or national security. So there's always this example of what if a video comes out of Donald Trump saying he's going to release the nuclear weapons, and there's no way to verify if this is true or not. So what could actually happen? That might be a kind of a crazy far off scenario, but just to bring it back to real life, there was a case recently in Europe where some fraudsters used the voice of a real CEO, and they manipulated it to call an employee at the company and tell that employee to transfer 222,000 euros into a bank account. So they're actually able to trick this person by manipulating someone's voice to get money. So there's definitely some cybersecurity threats that we should keep in mind. So what is being done to combat harmful deepfakes? So most of the solutions are very technical right now. People are using machine learning and AI to actually predict whether or not a video has been manipulated. Other people have also suggested blockchain, which I think is like the classic solution to any sort of technical problem. Let's just use blockchain, but they're saying let's create a digital footprint on all videos so we are actually able to tell if it's been changed or not. But that would be quite expensive for many companies, so I'm not sure how realistic. It seems startups are really working on that solution. And also civil society is just making recommendations on the societal level, always, of course, like media literacy and other things that are important. Yeah, and it seems like most of the solutions are coming out of academia, so also they're partnering with the social media companies. So it's kind of uncertain to me how successful these efforts have been so far, but that's what we want to explore in our upcoming papers, interviewing some experts and people that work at these companies to see really how successful this has been. Also in the beginning of the year, in January and February, interestingly, Facebook and Twitter came out with policies specifically about deepfakes, but they define harmful deepfakes in different ways. And they also will act in different situations. So Facebook says that a deepfake must really be created with artificial intelligence, whereas Twitter and YouTube don't really care about this. And interestingly, for a harmful deepfake, Facebook will remove it, while Twitter will either remove it or just label the video. So yeah, it's interesting to see that they take different approaches. I'm still not sure which one I think is the best, but I guess we also have to see with more time. Also, there are some social media platforms actually creating deepfake technology, and that's TikTok and Snapchat, and they don't have policies against deepfakes. So I think that's another interesting thing to note. Also, some governments are taking actions, like some states in the United States have deepfake bans during elections and on pornographic deepfakes, and also the European Union called deepfakes a main form of disinformation and included it in their action plan of 2018. But yeah, also another thing, it's still unclear to me how successful these policies are, and it's hard, I think, to balance free speech with also effective policies. So yeah, is the threat overhyped? Maybe, I don't know. We know that political deepfakes are only a small percentage. We do also know that the more deepfakes that exist, that means that'll actually improve the machine learning models. So they're better at predicting whether or not a video is manipulated because they have more data. And also maybe talking too much about deepfakes as a big threat could be self-defeating, as seen as the example in Gabon. But yeah, also maybe they're not overhyped because we already know that social media companies are slow to react when there's disinformation on their platforms. And also just this one-off type of political deepfake could be really damaging. So yeah, I'm not really sure the answer, but we want to keep exploring further in our next papers. So if you want to chat more about deepfakes, just let me know. It's my new favorite topic. So thank you.